Yo, welcome to Sig Slayers, the comic interview show, period. I'm Mike the Sig Slayer, chilling with Mark the Honorable Villain. What up, fam?
What's up, Mike? We got artist extraordinaire with us. I've seen his work. He can do masterpieces in a matter of seconds. Tell him who we got.
Joining us today, we have comic book creator and master painter, JGJones joining us. But before we chop it up with JG, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. All right, our next guest is one of the great artists in comics. You've seen his work in Marvel Boy, Final Crisis, and DC's 52. Ladies and gentlemen of the Stash Land, we bring to you the one and only JGJones. What's up, JG?
It's all good. It's all good, man.
Man, well, it's definitely all good. We're so happy to have you. We're just gonna just dive right on in. Since it's your first time joining us, we'd like to get your comic book origin story. In other words, how did you get your first gig in pro comics?
Oh, that's easy. I think I probably told this story more times than people want to listen to it, but I was working at a small newspaper, a weekly newspaper in Brooklyn, and I was reading comics again. So, I went with a buddy of mine every Wednesday. Around the corner, we'd take our lunch hour and go to the comic store. And, I was reading, Mike Mignola and, all the big guys who were going on back then, and Dark Knight Returns and, all that stuff. It's just like, wow, while I was away not reading comics, a lot of stuff has happened. So we kind of put a little comic together, wrote and drew it, and I drew it, and I think I had 9 pages done. And it's the old story. I walked through the snow in the middle of winter in New York to the Javits Center, to the Comic-Con, and I didn't know anybody or anything about it. And my buddy, Jonathan, said, "Show this guy over here, he'll look at it." So I handed my portfolio to this guy, and he said, "You want to start Monday?" I was like,
Wow.
"Who are you?" Jonathan said, this is the guy who was running Marvel for years, and he's now doing Defiant and Jim Shooter. And
Oh, wow.
That was my introduction. And he had to talk me into it, but yeah, I started the next week and quit my job. And
Wow, that's fantastic, Jim. So Jim Shooter gave you your break. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so off the rip, JG, you're known as an artist who also paints. Can you share some of your influences growing up as a developing artist? Because I'm pretty sure you have to have appreciated other painters, right?
Oh yeah. I've always been a painter since I was a kid. Trying to be. I was looking at like those Brothers Hildebrandt covers for the Lord of the Rings stuff, and trying to copy that kind of stuff. And also in comics, there were, Epic and like the European stuff. Heavy Metal had a lot of painted covers and some painted interiors and stuff like that. So that was always kind of in my head when I was a kid, trying to figure out what I was doing. And Voss and, all the great illustrators from the early part of the 20th century, So I just started diving into all that stuff. Wyeth.
So was painting always a part of your skill set as a comic book artist? You always added painting to your work?
I tried to whenever they let me. I don't think I quite had the skills yet. I had been a fine arts painter, but comics is a total different animal. I had to learn it on the fly. So Jim Shooter was a great help with all that, just turning teaching me how to do storytelling. You know, you see a lot of people starting out, they try and draw pinups and covers, but if you can't do storytelling, you can't get a job. This is kind of the way it is.
JG, let's talk about the Marvel Knights imprint book, Marvel Boy. Correct
Sure.
me if I'm wrong. This is your first time working with Grant Morrison, and we hear that he gives really dense scripts and notes. What was your experience going through a Grant Morrison script for the first time?
Yeah, Marvel Boy. Marvel Boy was a lot of fun. I really only knew Grant's work from a few things he had done, like The Invisibles. I think he had finished, and I'd been reading that, and I was like, okay, let's go. I was just looking for the next job, you know, essentially after Black Widow, and Jimmy and Joe Quesada, Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada said, let's do this next if you want. So I read the first script, and it's like, yeah, but to your point, his scripts can be very dense, and I think I spent a lot of time working just making sure I had the through line, because it's impossible to write everything that's on the page. And I was constantly harassing him and asking, okay, am I leaving out anything that's like plot essential? I mean, or is it just atmosphere? So we just kind of worked with each other. The same with when I went over and did work with him at DC. It's just, we talk and
Map it out.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so since you mentioned DC, I got to talk about 52, man. And I got to get into your headspace with this. As an artist, knowing that for a year straight, each week, you had a cover on the shelves, man. What was that like?
That was the best gig I ever had. It was just pure comics fun, you know. It's like when you're a kid trying to draw Spider-Man and Superman or whatever, and just, you know, in your notebooks, you're just drawing all day and after school, and sometimes in school and getting in trouble, but, you know, they just let me rip. So I was in most of the plotting sessions, and I knew in advance what was coming up so we didn't get stuck. And I was really had the easiest job on the whole thing, just staying ahead of it. And, you know,
we feel that color artists are very underappreciated when it comes to the comic book production process and stuff. And you worked quite a bit with the gradient general, Alex Sinclair. Tell us, what was it like seeing other people color your work, especially as a painter?
I always really loved Alex's stuff from, you know, Image. And when I got a chance to work with him, I just said, can he just be my regular guy for 52 so that we have like a look through the whole book? And they had no problem with that. And Alex and I have a really good relationship. So again, we just talk, I'd make notes. We'd, if we had a problem, we'd just make a phone call. Back in the days of professionalism, I don't know how it is now, but.
You mentioned that comics is a whole other beast when it comes to art and production and timelines and all of that stuff. When did you get the go ahead? When did they give you the go ahead to let you start painting stuff?
I think the first stuff that I had published that I was painting was when I was working on She Books with Crusade Comics. And I remember I talked Billy into letting me do some cover paintings and kind of got my feet wet there. And some of them are not too bad, you know.
JG, let's unpack your role in Final Crisis. First off, how did you land that gig on Final Crisis, and what significance did that project have to you at that time?
I was just really fortunate in being at the right place at the right time for a big chunk of my career. was kind of, let's see, moving on to next things in my mind. And Dan DiDio, I think, came to me and told me the project and asked if I wanted to do it. And I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. I guess I didn't really know how much of work I was getting in for, but.
So how did he pitch that to you? What did he say? Oh, you're going to be working with Morrison? Like what did he kind of share? What details that, I mean, obviously, did he say it was a third part in a trilogy? Like,
it was kind of sold to me as the big event comic for that year. And working with Grant again, I had worked with him before. So they actually stuck me on a plane and sent me over to hang out at Grant's place in Scotland for a week or two. And we just, sat down and drew comics together and talked and did designs for the book. And so he kind of laid it all out for me, and I had an idea of where it was going and the major plot points and everything. So when I actually got the script, I was already caught up to speed and ready to roll.
Crisis and DC means working with every character in the published line. What was some challenges of drawing such a massive crossover?
Well, the biggest crossover the problem was I didn't have much of a life. I think each issue was close to 30 pages, and then I was doing 2 covers, one of them fully painted for each issue, and it was hard enough. And I kind of, while I was working, I was having a lot of health issues, and eventually I had to bow out. I just couldn't physically keep up with the work anymore. So that's why I wasn't able to finish the last issue or 2. I was always such a fourth world junkie as a kid. No comic shops. I used to have to go around to secondhand paperback stores and dig around, root around, look for those issues. I know I'm aging myself. Now it's pretty easy. You go in, you go to a comic shop, go to a con, you find your stuff. But back then it was a real, search for anything.
You had another significant cover run on Doc Savage, but you also wrote a story arc for Doc Savage in the same volume. What was it like writing a script for an artist instead of being the person receiving the script?
I was always a huge fan of those novellas when I was a kid. I think I have my collection of every one of the Bantam editions here still. So I knew that character inside and out, and they had hired me to be the cover artist on Doc Savage. And then they were running towards the end, and I was like, I know how to write this guy. I've been reading him forever. So I just conned him into letting me write a story arc. And I went back to the original paperbacks, and I said, I'm just going to write my script basically plot by plot, my own story, but plot it by looking at the paperbacks. So, this happens, and at this kind of point in the story, and then you load on some more stuff, and then so I was basically trying to ape the story style from one of the old paperback books more than anything. Just loved the character, so I was thrilled to get a chance to play with him.
JG, as the series cover artist and the writer for that series, was it easier to create the cover concept as the script writer? Were you thinking of the cover before and then writing the script, or were you?
Yeah, I was kind of doing it along the same time. So as I would write the script, I had in mind which, like the crocodile cover, I already had that in mind when I started writing that. Pretty much all the way through, I was looking for a way to bring, my job as a cover artist is to try and get people to pick it up. And so I wanted people to pick up my book that I wrote. And like you said, I was ahead of the game, just already aware of what was going to be in there and what would get eyeballs on the book.
JG, one of your creator-owned projects was actually loosely adapted into a movie, and the voice of God, Morgan Freeman, was in it. Tell us how something that was first visualized in your studio became Wanted, a feature film starring Angelina Jolie.
Just dumb luck, you know. Mark had been doing some nice work, for a while at that point, and he had been over at Marvel for a little while. And I wanted to work with him because I liked his stuff. And I just kind of called him up, got his number, and asked if he had anything that he'd be interested in putting me on. And he had, I think, 5 books that he was going to do himself, not for Marvel or DC. And would I be interested? And said, okay, let me see. And he sent me, I think, 3-4 different scripts, and I read them, and I picked Wanted because it just sounded like the most fun to do.
That book was under Top Cow. So were you guys communicating with Mark Silvestri at all during the production?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mark was a good guy. He was really easy to work with.
Okay.
Real rah-rah, you know. Got a lot of big books at the time, and, you know, I enjoyed working for him.
So tell us about your workflow process working on Dust to Dust. We noticed that the pages are painted. Can you walk us through the process of laying out a page?
Sure. I have a page on on my drawing board right now. I pretty much do the same thing I always do. I start with script, and I do like really small. I keep a sketchbook around all the time, and I do like just really rough
Thumbnails?
layouts. I don't know.
Okay.
And get everything sorted out, and then go straight to the page. Because I'm doing a period piece, I have to do a lot of research. I have tons of files, you know, just for cars and locations and, you know, clothes, anything. Just when I have to do a room, I need to know what kind of stuff's in there, you know, down to the lighting and whatnot. So it's a lot of research to do a period piece like this.
And each one of these pages are being traditionally painted too, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm painting them in just sepia gouache.
And this book is under Giant Generator. I know you're writing it with Phil Bram, correct?
Yeah.
Does Rick Remender have any place in this book, in this production?
Yeah, he's pretty much babysitting it for me. He was very generous in letting me use his resources to put it under his imprint. So it pretty much came with, you know, his editorial hand on it. He reads everything. He has input, just cleaning up stuff and you know, some of the choices, but he's not really doing any of the writing or anything. It's just been really, really helpful to me to have somebody that already has an established and set up system that I can just plug this book into.
I have another process question. You're one of the few people in comics, especially a person that does traditional artwork, that pencil and inks do the whole shebang by themselves. When were you allowed to do that? Because sometimes it's about time, right? Like, because we found out through Klaus Janson that inking is something that's kind of specific to the comic book medium, and it was done to expedite the art. So with let's say going back to your Final Crisis work, those pages were fully you. And so when did the big publishers say, hey, we'll risk it on this guy, he can get the job done?
I think that if I think back, I started inking myself when I was working for a Crusade, like the last few issues before I went over to Marvel. I was inking myself, and it's just because I'm completely anal about my work, and And
so it seems before you, so you already had your name already established as someone who does his own thing. And so when they hired you for Marvel, which is the biggest comic book publisher, they took you as you were, which was a person that inks his own stuff. So you already had your resume already down before you got with Marvel.
Yeah. Billy Tucci and was friends with Jimmy and Joe, and basically we all went to the same bar in Manhattan on off hours and hung out. And Jimmy always had his eyes open for talent, I guess, and he would see in my stuff, and I would bring stuff to the bar, and he wanted to look at it, and he said, you're almost ready. And then when they put Marvel Knights together, he said, okay, we got something for you if you want it. And it's like, okay. So that was Jimmy all the way. He just had faith in me and let me run with it.
Like I said in the beginning, JG can push out miracles in minutes, man. I've seen him work. He works fast. And JG, we're on our last question. Is there something that we haven't talked about that you want the fans to know about? Any new projects, any upcoming appearances, any other projects besides Dust to Dust?
I'm starting to play around with my next project. It might be something completely out of left field, not necessarily something that people are expecting from me. And I think it's going to involve like a lot of painting. I'm thinking about doing a painted book project that's not like traditional comic format, but definitely story. I guess more on that later, but as far as appearances, I'll be getting back in the flow this year. I'll be at Heroes Con. I'll be at San Diego as a guest this year. I'll be at Baltimore, and let's see where else. Still debating New York. Probably be at New York.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, you'll definitely see us at one of those shows. You named off two that we're going to
San
be
Diego,
at, so,
for sure.
Yeah, San Diego. So you'll definitely see us in person later on this year. But JG, thank you so much. It's been such a treat having you joining us. I just wanted to let you know you always have a home here.
Thanks. Always happy to talk to you guys.
Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. This is Sig Slayers. I'm Mike, speaking for Mark and JGJones. We are out. Peace.
Sig Slayers.